Hello, this is What the Faux Travel Podcast, Series 2, Episode 10, and it's all about Australia with travel podcaster Richard Kearns.
Here we go again with another episode of What the Faux Travel Podcast. Welcome along, everyone. This month, we are joined by Richard from the RJK World Tour podcast. Hi, Richard.
Hi, Nick. Hi, Amy. Thanks for inviting me.
Pleasure. We've been talking about this for maybe a year.
More than that, I reckon. But I'm a big fan of what you guys do. Listen to every episode, so it's a real honour to be here.
You're one of our listeners from the early days.
Yeah, right from the beginning, actually. So, yeah. Welcome.
It's good. Yeah, we've finally done this. It's going to be a fun episode talking about a place that you know a lot about. We know a bit about, but you know a lot.
So the reason that we're talking to you about Australia is because you lived there, didn't you?
Yeah, so I've spent about just over 3 years of my life in Australia. I went over for a working holiday experience, like a lot of people. Wanted to stay for maybe 6 months, stayed for 2 years, because things change. And then at the end of those 2 years, I became a permanent resident, so I went back and lived there for another year. And I've been back in the UK for a year now, but yeah, spent 3 years there.
So you must have kind of liked it if you stayed there for 3 years.
Yeah, I've obviously got a lot of good memories from there, some good friends, some good times. Didn't like it at first, kind of struggled in my first year. I feel like I've got to be honest about it. Sometimes people paint it out to be this sort of miracle land, and I really struggled to begin with in Melbourne. And then after about 6 months, I found my feet, started earning some money, and then just went from strength to strength and built up a really good lifestyle for myself, actually, so...
Amazing. So we will obviously talk about it a little bit more later, but I just wanted to play a clip from our New Zealand episode with Carl Watson because it's so close to New Zealand, there was a lot of things that came up in comparison to Australia.
Was this the thing where you had the accent game?
It was that episode, but that's not what I was gonna play. But this is just a brief outline of what Nick thinks of Australia.
I love Australia, but for me, New Zealand kicks its ass.
Oh,
sorry,
100%.
Aussies. Sorry.
Yeah.
Well, I'm very sorry, Aussies, but I found what I tell people with Australia, because I'm not good in the heat anyway. So if you don't like heat, then don't go. Yeah. I found Australia to be a more boring version of England with uncomfortable weather, and 99% of it's just a dust bowl.
Yeah,
it's better than that.
Oh dear, I can hear all the hate mail coming in now. I'm going to make my point absolutely clear. In this next hour, you're going to know exactly what I think about Australia. But yeah, that's not great, is it? Not a good start.
I can see where you're coming from, though, because you guys went for 3 weeks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I might have had a similar impression after 3 weeks. It's just, like I said before, I struggled for 6 months, had good times, but I wasn't that taken with it for a good year, and it kind of grew on me. And I see it, for me, as more of a place that you live in. There is some cool stuff to visit, don't get me wrong, but I just had it so much better over there in terms of lifestyle, which is why I love it.
And I'm glad you said that, because we're going to talk about exactly that topic later on, like living there versus being on holiday. I think it's a good topic to talk about.
Absolutely. So, Nick, can you give us our shout-outs for this month?
Shout-outs, my favourite part of the show. So, first of all, Nick Goes Wandering on Instagram. He got in touch. He said, keep up the good work. Very informative for newcomers to the travelling scene. Thank you, Nick. And we also had a message from famous BBC Look East TV reporter, Robbie West.
Yes, Robbie.
A.K.A. someone that Amy knows from work. He said, I really liked your mini episode about meeting locals. Thank you, Robbie. Matthew Chapman also got in touch on Instagram. He said, I love the podcast. It's very good when I'm bored. I love the Capitals game. I agree, Matthew.
Is that a compliment? It's great when I'm bored.
Well, that's what we're for, aren't we? To keep people company, pass the time.
It just sounds funny.
And finally, Layla Adams said on Instagram, love your podcast. Short and sweet, to the point. Thank you, Layla. Thank you to everyone that's got in touch, and glad to hear that you're enjoying the show.
Amazing. So we need to swiftly move on to the Capitals game, which you put up something on social media last week saying that you'd been practicing, Richard.
Oh, it's not going to backfire. You've not picked some difficult ones.
No, it's a fair list.
I've just seen the list. It's pretty fair, actually. Okay. I reckon you could get it.
Okay, I'm going to talk about my preparation for it after, just in case I absolutely flop at the game.
Okay, cool. Right, so Richard, I know that you know what's going on, but the Capitals game is where I will read out a series of countries and you have to come back with the capital city of that country. You have 30 seconds. Let's hit it. Okay, so Bahrain,
Manasper,
Austria,
Vienna,
Thailand,
Bangkok,
Cuba,
Havana,
Japan,
Tokyo,
Malaysia,
Kuala Lumpur,
Luxembourg,
Luxembourg,
the Maldives,
Maldives City,
Russia,
Moscow,
Slovakia,
Bratislava,
Singapore,
Singapore,
Ukraine,
Kiev,
USA.
Washington District, Columbia.
And he has 4 seconds left, and I have none left on the list.
Whoa!
Richard!
Ah,
Oh my goodness.
Wow. Okay.
right, I've got a confession to make. We mentioned before that I've been revising for this, and found a video on YouTube. It's a really irritating video, and it lists in alphabetical order, has the country and then the capital city. Yeah, I've been listening to that
Over and over again.
Wow.
probably about 4 times. And then my tactic was, because you can't learn all of them, I think there's 193 countries. So if there was a country I didn't know, I was going to say that country and city, because like Mexico City or
Yeah.
what's the other one?
That's quite a good shout,
Guatemala,
Yeah.
and there's a few which are named after. Wow, well,
That was so good.
so my
how-
top of the leaderboard.
well.
You
we'll,
might be.
We'll tell you very soon.
Right, let's go through
Let's
it.
go through. So the first one was Bahrain. 'Cause I think you have been there, haven't you?
Yeah.
You were actually close. Is Manama.
Okay.
But
What
I think,
did you
I think
say?
It's a mass-
Manasper or something like
yeah,
that.
it was close. Austria, Vienna, you got that right. Thailand, Bangkok, you got that right. Cuba, Havana, yes. Japan, Tokyo, yep. Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, yep. Luxembourg, Luxembourg City, but yeah, you said Luxembourg, definitely give you that. The Maldives is Male.
What did you say?
Maldives City.
Yeah, it's a good. Yeah, that's a good tactic there.
Very good.
You're welcome, listeners. Future guests.
Yeah, Russia, Moscow, yep. Slovakia, Bratislava, yep. Singapore is Singapore, correct. Ukraine is Kiev, correct. USA, Washington DC, correct. That means you got 11, and you are our new champion.
Oh
Yes.
my God, you hit
Get
the
in.
top of the leaderboard. I didn't think anyone was going to do that.
Yeah, you beat me and Phil from way back on the
In the China
China
episode.
Series 1. We both got 10. You're a new champion. I didn't even write any more down because I thought we're not going to get that far. So I reckon you probably would have got one more, actually, if we'd have kept going.
Well, we had 4 seconds left, so maybe even 2 more.
But you are the champion.
Oh, well,
Wow.
it's a big honour, you know. It just shows that hard work pays off. And I kind of think of myself as the Roger Bannister of What the Faux podcast
I
guest.
don't even know who Roger Bannister is.
He was the first guy to run a 4-minute mile, I think, and everybody thought it was impossible. And then he did a 4-minute mile, and then everyone started doing it afterwards because he broke that barrier. So
Wow.
I hope that paves the way for people to go on that YouTube video that I went on. And
You're
just-
going to be the inspiration for millions of people out there.
Still feel the pressure though. Like I've always shouted at guests when I've been listening in the past, thinking that's an easy one. But you know, it's not as easy as you think it is when you're listening. Like
No.
the pressure is on.
No,
Got to remain
absolutely.
composed.
Like if I was just looking at a list, I reckon I could get them. But it's the music and the timing that gets me. I just crack under pressure. Hopefully, I will never have to do the Capitals game.
I'll send you that link. when you do.
Great, thank you. So, game show facts, Nick.
This show is just coming thick and fast with such fun
You
features.
always say that.
Okay, game show facts. Here we go. Australia is a country surrounded by the Indian and Pacific Oceans. Australia is as wide as the distance between London to Moscow. The country is known for its Sydney Opera House, the Great Barrier Reef, a vast interior desert wilderness called the Outback, and unique animal species like kangaroos and duck-billed platypus. The population is around 23 million. The capital city is Canberra, which is around halfway between Sydney and Melbourne. This is because both Sydney and Melbourne wanted to be the capital and the government couldn't decide. The main language is English and the currency is the Australian dollar. The country's first inhabitants, the Aboriginal people, are believed to have migrated from Asia tens of thousands of years before the arrival of British settlers in 1788. They now make up less than 3% of Australia's population. The British first used Australia as a place to send their prisoners. Australia's first police force was made up of the most well-behaved convicts. Australia still has strong political and social links to Britain and is still part of the British Commonwealth, although the future role of the British monarchy has been a recurring issue in politics. The biggest property in Australia is bigger than Belgium. Former Prime Minister Bob Hawke set a world record for downing 2.5 pints of beer in 11 seconds. Australia is ranked second on the Human Development Index based on life expectancy, income and education, and Melbourne has been ranked the world's most livable city for the past 3 years.
2.5 pints in 11 seconds. Do you reckon you guys could do that?
No, I couldn't do 1 pint in that time. But former Prime Minister, that's a good example of, even though I might slate the country later, it's a good example. I do actually like Australian people. I think they're good fun. And that is a great example. What a lad. The Prime Minister down 2.5 pints. World record.
Oh, that was the Prime Minister. I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
What a lad. Love that. We need to move on to language lessons with Amy. There is a very important word in the Aussie language, which is So as you live there, I'm sure you're very aware of that, Richard. Why do they use the word so much?
I think they use it often as a term of endearment. So if they call you a then it's like, oh, they really like you. It's like, oh, I'm off to do What the Faux podcast with those Nick and Amy. It's like a term of endearment. But if you go, all right, mate, it's like mates oh, you're not really a mate. It's like a
Really? How strange. So like two opposite words have
like,
swapped around.
Mate. Yeah. Makes sense, right?
So it's kind of the opposite. So even if you say it in sort of a friendly tone, like, oh, you're right, mate, is that still quite offensive?
Does it come across a bit sarcastic?
Do you know what? We're getting a bit detailed now, so I don't really know.
We're looking way too much into this. Let's move on.
Right, so coming up on this episode, we are going to be talking to Richard about why you live there, how you live there, how long, where you went and all of that. We're going to talk about the people, tourism, prices of stuff. We're going to really delve into Australia. And then halfway through, we're going to play a game because it's What the Faux Travel Podcast. And this one is called Reverse Trivia. I will explain a bit more later, but that's the game we're going to be playing. And then we're going to rate Australia out of 10, which I reckon Nick's answer especially will be quite interesting with that one.
I'm not going to be harsh. I'm going to be fair.
Okay. So, Richard, let's start by asking, how long were you in Australia in total and what places, just briefly, like what places did you visit?
So I was there for 3 years, 3 and a bit years, mainly living there. So I spent a year in Melbourne. I spent 2 years living in Sydney. I visited stuff in Victoria, like the Great Ocean Road, the Grampian National Park. I visited Ayers Rock or Uluru in the centre. Went to Adelaide very briefly. And I did the famous East Coast trip, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Yeah, people have different opinions of the East Coast. Some people say it's the best place ever. Other people say it's the worst place because it is where the tourists go. But you've also been to Tasmania, haven't you?
Yeah.
So what area was it that you lived?
Year in Melbourne, mainly in a hostel in the city centre, which every time I say I lived in a backpacker hostel, people look at me like I've got 4 heads. They think it's the weirdest thing. But it's quite a common thing that people do, and I actually recommend it if you are going over there on a working holiday visa because, you're going to this strange country on your own. You need to meet people. All right, you're not really going to meet locals, but you're meeting people who are in the same boat as you. And actually, you can learn a lot from them, like what they've done and what banks they went with, what mobile phone networks are best, how to get jobs, that sort of thing. So
did that actually work out cheaper? Because when we were there, maybe you're looking at $20 each, like for a bed. And was it not cheaper to rent like some crappy apartment?
It was probably $200 a week because you get weekly rates. If you get an apartment, this is a pitfall. I see it as a pitfall a lot of people fall into. They go in these apartments that might be $150 a week, but you're sharing a room with 3 other people. They put bunk beds in, and there's 1 kitchen between 8 of you because there'll be 2 rooms and 1 bathroom. So actually, you're essentially living in a hostel, but just not as much access to the facilities. If you wanted to get your own room, you're probably looking at $300 a week, maybe a bit less for somewhere worse, but I'd say around that much. Obviously varies city to city, but
yeah, okay. Yeah, so it sounds like you did it the cheapest way you could. So yeah, you started in Melbourne. Let's just go back a little bit. So why did you go to Australia? What was the plan?
Okay, I'll try and keep this as simple as possible, but the reason I actually started travelling is, I got the same start as what you did, Nick, and I did the Camp America programme years ago. Before that, my life plan was to work all year and then go to Magaluf for a week or Ayia Napa or something like that.
Nice.
And then for whatever reason, I did the Camp America programme and it completely just changed my outlook on life, and I had ambitions to go to all these different places. I went back to America the next year and then I formulated this plan to travel the world. I started off in Asia. I sort of executed this plan, started off in Asia 2 years later, spent 5 months. And then it's a common route, really. You go from Southeast Asia to Australia, and I thought, yeah, I'll see Australia. And I wanted to go to the Australian Open tennis. I wanted to go to the cricket. I didn't even like cricket, to be honest, but, you know, it's the Ashes.
You've got to do that when you're there, yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to do all this stuff, and I thought I'd spend 6 months there. And it just turned into a longer time that I spent there, and 3 years in the end.
So that's because you got there, and then you tried to find work. So was that always the plan?
Always a plan, yeah. I wanted to do farm work to begin with, to get it out of the way. And again, this is something we'll probably get into a bit later on, but I recommend getting that done early as possible. It's just a common thing. People go over there, it's work and holiday, so you save a bit of money, and then you earn their money, which goes a lot further over there. And then you get to travel to places nearby, whether it's in Australia, whether it is New Zealand, Hawaii's, although it's 10 hours away, Jetstar fly there, which is basically their version of EasyJet. So even though it's not close, I still recommend it, actually, because it's one of the best chances you'll get to go to Hawaii.
That is a good tip. So, yeah, let's start from the beginning. We'll talk about work-life balance over there in a bit, but the place, as being a tourist, seeing what it's like, Melbourne, what do you think of that? Because whether that's true or not, I read for the past few years it's the most livable city in the world, or one of the most livable. So, yeah, what do you think of Melbourne?
I really liked it, and I can see why, because what those things are based on is healthcare, education, transport, what's going on, and yeah, it's got all of those good things. A lot of sport going on in Melbourne. So you've got the tennis, one of the 4 majors. You've got the MCG, which is their main cricket ground. You've got a rugby league team. You've got what they call soccer, but we call football. They've got Aussie rules, although it's in the AFL, it's mainly a Victoria thing, the state of Victoria. If you look at the table, 70% of the teams are from Melbourne, so that's what it's famous for. The only problem with Melbourne, and we're used to it as Brits, but the weather can get pretty shaky in the winter.
What, is in rain or?
Well, they say Melbourne has 4 seasons in one day. So you can wake up, it's really nice, then it'll be overcast, then it'll shower, then it'll be a bit windy, and then it'll be sunny at the end of the day.
Right, okay.
But then in the winter, which is opposite to our winter, so June, July and that, it gets to around about 2 degrees. And so,
wow.
Yeah, so I didn't do my research, so I just thought Australia, sun,
It's gonna be hot.
Beaches, that's it. That's what you think of Australia. So I went to Melbourne, purely based my decision on the tennis, because it's just something I always wanted to do. And I just thought that would be the deciding factor between that and Sydney, because kind of both big cities, both famous. And yeah, it got to winter, and during my furniture removals job, which you alluded to earlier, it was so cold we had to sort of flip a coin or play rock, paper, scissors to see who got out the truck first and met the customer, because it was pretty cold.
Because it was that cold. Yeah. Oh my God. With Melbourne, am I right in thinking that out of all of the main destinations you can go to, it's the arty one? So if you're kind of like a Shoreditch person from London, you're quite arty or creative, that's the place to go?
Yeah, there's a few cool areas. I think one of them is called New Brunswick, which has got a lot of cool cafe shops and graffiti and stuff like that. I think that's the main area for that. There's a lot of different side streets that if you go down them, you see a lot of cool bars and that as well. And it's got more creative places, more cafes to sit in, if you like that sort of thing, which they do, because they love their coffee in Melbourne.
Very nice. So, Nick, let's sort of talk about what we've done as well. So we know what, like Richard's experience of Australia, but we went in 2013 and we went for a 3-week trip, and then we went to New Zealand after. And we started in Perth. We were there for a little bit. We stayed there, and then we flew over to Brisbane. We got a camper van and drove up to Cairns. And then on our flight to New Zealand, we stopped in Melbourne. So we were in Melbourne for 2 hours. So we got to see a lot of it, obviously.
Did you get into the city?
Yeah, we had to walk around because, we didn't have the time. We didn't really know where we were going. It seemed all right, but, we didn't get time to explore it properly.
One cool thing about it, actually, is that it's got the grid system, like New York.
But like the roads, you mean? Yeah.
But it's not as regimented as New York, in that New York's, 1st Avenue, 2nd Avenue, 3rd Avenue. The way it works is you've got a main street called Flinders Street, then you've got one that's perpendicular called Swanson Street. And then the ones that are parallel to... Sorry, I'm getting a bit mathematical here. The ones that are parallel to Flinders Street, they'll have ones called Little Bourke Street, and then they'll have Bourke Street. And then there's Latrobe Street and Little Latrobe Street, and then it's got the same one. So when you get to know the streets, you can kind of work out where you are. And then it starts at one end. These are parallel to Swanson Street now. I think it's Prince William Queen Elizabeth, so you can remember it like that.
Oh, okay. Cool. That's quite interesting, actually.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And yeah, so even if it's a new place, as long as you know that information, you can kind of navigate yourself around.
Yeah, you can work out where you are. If someone says, "Oh, meet me at this bar," and you're like, "Where's that?" and they'll say, "Oh, it's on Latrobe and Elizabeth Street." You're like, "Oh, okay, yeah."
Easy. Cool. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll move around Australia to places that you've been and we've been. I'll just quickly start with Perth because I haven't really got much to say about Perth. Have you been before, Richard?
I've not been to the west,
Okay.
but I have heard once you get out of Perth and you go up north,
Yeah.
it's absolutely beautiful.
Well, we've heard the west countryside is amazing. Like, best part of Australia. We've heard. But all we saw was Perth. We also went to Fremantle, or Freo, as they call it. That's where Fremantle Prison is, like the first prison where the British prisoners went. So it's quite interesting to see quite a bit of relevant history for us Brits. But you see, we were there in their winter, June, July, our summer. So it was out of season, but you could tell. The place was dead, wasn't it?
Yeah, it's quite a big city, to be fair, and everything's new, everything looks really cool, but you don't see people. And for me, that's the thing that makes travel, seeing people. So we could walk down the street for about 10 minutes, we would barely see anyone. The one good thing I do remember, though, is that the transport was free. So, like, you could just jump onto a bus and get around.
Oh, yeah, it was a tram. Well, yeah, there was definitely something that took you around for free, which
And
is
this
pretty
wasn't a case that we didn't pay.
cool. Which we've done loads before in Europe on the tram.
Melbourne have got one of those ones as well. It's called a City Circle. It's like an old tram that goes just this big loop
Where's that, sorry?
in Melbourne.
Oh, okay, sweet. So yeah, Australia is actually really good for transport and can after like their own people really because they can get around for free and tourists. But
I really, really like the transport system over there. I know it makes me sound the most boring person.
sound like a train
The
spotter
more-
or something like looking at all the trains with your little
Here
notebook.
comes the 7:62 tram. Oh, it's 2 minutes late.
So I'm really embarrassed of myself actually. I'm just geeked up on the Capitals game,
grid.
and now I'm talking about trains and transport.
Here he
but
goes again.
It's one of my favourite things. So over here, I've got run a car. It's a 1999 Ford Fiesta.
Gangster. Mate, you're a fucking baller.
Welcome to the good life.
So over here, I run a car. Over in Australia, the public transport's so good and it's so cheap. So in Sydney, you have a Opal card, which is the same as the Oyster, essentially. They've kind of stolen that idea, but it's just a lot cheaper. You get your first 8 journeys you have to pay for, and then after that, everything's free. And that takes you to the Blue Mountains out of Sydney, which is 3 hours away. I think it takes you to Newcastle as well, which is a couple hours up north, I think. And it costs
That's
about
incredible.
it costs about $40-ish a week, which
Wow.
is about 20 quid.
That's fantastic. That's really good. And just before we move on, all I'm going to say about Perth is, it's really a place where there are a lot of good jobs there because that's where like the mining industry is. Like people fly from Perth to in the outback or offshore or somewhere. You can get some good jobs there, but we just didn't find it was a very fun place to visit as tourists.
No, I remember we went on a tour where we did stuff like sandboarding, and they like advertised it as this really great trip. And don't get me wrong, we had a great day, but we went out on this coach, and this coach was going up and down these sand dunes. And then they're like, "Okay, cool, like let's get off and we can do some sandboarding." And then they handed out 2 boards, and there was like probably 50 of us. And there's 2 boards, and then they're like, "Oh no, you can't sandboard." And we were like, "What? That's what we've paid for." And they're like, No, we don't have the licenses for you to do that. So you have to sit on the board. You can't stand up on it, and you can just literally just ride down it. And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Well, we've paid for that. So what? Can we only pay you half the price? Like you're only giving us half the product. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
It sounds
just a
like
bit of a
Asia.
scam.
Yeah, that was a bit underwhelming. But then when we left, we flew 5 hours, which I find amazing. 5 hours from Perth to Brisbane, one side directly to the other side. And yeah, when we landed in Brisbane, it was clearly a bigger city, more happening, a lot more tourists. But I think before we get to Brisbane, let's go from Melbourne. You said you've lived in Sydney. So that's kind of you go Melbourne, Sydney, then you get to Brisbane. Now, we actually never went to Sydney. And I know it's harsh for me to judge Australia. I've never even seen Sydney. I'll explain why we didn't go. But what do you think of Sydney?
I really liked it again. The problem with me comparing Melbourne and Sydney is that I had it a lot better in Sydney in terms of the money I was earning, the lifestyle I had, and the times I had. So it's kind of very biased towards Sydney, and I appreciate a lot of it's because of my experiences. But yeah, I really liked Sydney. I thought the beaches were great. Transport, which I've already alluded to, was absolutely epic.
You love it.
The weather's good, which again, I've talked a lot of cliche things here, so beaches and weather, but Their winter's just about the easiest thing I've ever got through. I'd wake up in the morning, I'd probably have to put a hoodie on top of my shirt, I'd have my breakfast, walk to a train station. By the time I got to work, I could take my hoodie off, it was warm enough, so I'm just in shirt and trousers. This is in their winter. And then I get to the office and all the Aussies were like, oh, it's so cold in here. Do you see it was 16 degrees? I can't believe it.
Oh my God.
I know, yeah. And it rained, don't get me wrong, it would rain for a couple of weeks. Christ, I do sound so boring. but it kind of... I think
no, it's not you, it's Australia. That sounds boring.
You said it, Amy.
I think this is a fact that this is definitely not 100% legit, so check it out on Wikipedia. But I think that there's twice as much rainfall in Sydney as there is in London, but Sydney just kind of gets it out of the way. Like, it'll absolutely rain cats and dogs for about 2 weeks, and that's it. You won't see it for...
You're absolutely right. Parts of Australia, where it's more tropical, you've got it. There's a place called, where is it?
It's a place called Tully, right? And that's in Queensland. It's just by Cairns. Cairns? I never know how to say it. But that's Australia's wettest town. Because everyone always jokes with England and how it always rains and stuff. And because we live in Essex, and to be fair, it's known as the county that's the best for the weather in the UK, or in England, sorry. So we have got it good, but it hardly ever rains here. So when people go, oh, you live in England, oh, poor you, it's always raining. I'm like, no, it's not. We actually have great weather in Essex.
Yeah, it rains a hell of a lot more in Australia. And a friend of ours from Australia stayed once, again, during the summer. So the weather was nicer. But he said, I'm going to do his voice now, I can't believe it. He goes, it never bloody rains here. I can't believe it.
Who? I don't even know who he's talking about.
But
who is that?
It's Luke.
Where's he from?
The cricket guy in Malden.
Oh.
I'm not going to go into the story because the listeners don't care exactly who he is. He's just a friend from Australia. But yeah, he said, as an Aussie, he thought it always rained here, and he said it doesn't. It's fine here. But yeah, Australia gets more rain. But sorry, back to Sydney. The weather's good. It's a nice city. What do you recommend people do for fun when they're in Sydney?
As a holiday, obviously, the main stuff. It goes without saying. Go to the Sydney Opera House and the Harbour Bridge.
Have you walked over that? Because can't you walk over it like you can at the London Dome?
I haven't.
O2, sorry.
Yeah, you can book a trip and you get harnessed up and you walk across it. I didn't do that because towards the end of my Australian living experience, actually, on my daily commute, I had to go over the bridge, which was kind of quite cool to think, like, look where I've come in my life. Like, you see the Opera House and the bridge on TV, and it just becomes part of my daily life.
That's your commute.
Yeah. So I've seen it a lot, so I never really bothered with that. But obviously those goes without saying, and Bondi Beach. A popular thing to do is that there's another beach called Coogee Beach, and you can walk between the two. It's a 5-kilometre coastal walk, so that's pretty cool. A bit of a off-the-wall one that people won't say. I worked in a place called Parramatta, which isn't great. It's in the western suburbs, but you can get a boat trip, which is part of that transport pocket, which is part of that transport package that I've been going on about. So you can use your Opal. Make sure you've had your
Opal.
Do you work for Opal? Are you on commission?
Sponsored. So make sure you've racked up those 8 journeys, and then you get it for free.
Make sure you do them 8 journeys, folks.
Track down the times of the trains.
But anyway, so you get a train to Parramatta, walk to where the ferry starts, and you get a ferry, and it's from the western suburbs, and it goes all the way out to the Opera House. So it sort of goes inland into Australia, and you're coming out into the harbour, basically. And it's quite cool scenery. It's take about an hour and a half. Not one you'll see in the guidebooks, but it got recommended to me, and I did it a few times if I had the time. If I was meeting someone in town after work, I'd go via that because it was such a cool thing to do.
Cool. So Sydney, good. And I'm assuming it is expensive. Do you think it's reasonably priced for what you get back?
If you earn decent money over there, it becomes pretty good. I had it a lot better off over there than I do over here. Less outgoings, I guess.
So if you're living and working in Sydney, the price is fine. But say you've just gone for a holiday, it's probably not great. Yeah,
and one of the big things that happened to me, and it happens to a lot of people, you go from Asia, you've been travelling around Asia, where you can live for, if you wanted to, $5 a day. Sleep, you can eat, you can have a great night out for $20, something like that, right?
Easy.
You go over there and you're just paying for things straight away. Like, you'll do a food shop and it'll cost you so much more than the eating out does in Asia. You end up spending quite a lot quite quickly. I do remember that pints in Sydney were a little bit cheaper than in Melbourne. A standard pint in Melbourne would be about $8 when I was there. If you think that $8 is a lot for a pint, there is a cheaper alternative. Do you know what I'm talking about?
You are talking about a fine Australian wine, aren't you?
I certainly am. Have we talked about that on the podcast?
I don't think we've ever spoken about GOON before, but enlighten us, please.
I didn't know Goon was wine. I thought it was a cheap beer.
Well, is it wine? That's it.
Exactly. What is it?
What the fuck is it?
It says may contain nut and fish products on the packaging.
No.
It's
Yeah.
basically it's about $12 for 4 litres of quote unquote wine, and it's minging. It's horrible, but it's a choice of backpackers because you go over there, you're travelling through the country, you don't want to pay $8, so you stick to GOON. And the way it was described to me is that when you're making wine, you get these nice grapes, you crush them, and that's what you get like the top of the range wines are made from. Machine will go again, crush what's left, and then that's kind of the next one where the ones that sort of people who earn a normal wage would probably drink those ones. And then there's hardly anything left, but they still go back and crush it, and that's GOON.
GOON.
And it's made in a factory where they have fish products there and nut products, which is why they put it on there.
Right.
So it's basically, the stuff the winemakers don't want, they give it to whoever makes
backpackers, basically.
the GOON.
There's a thing I saw the other day on Facebook going around, it saying Australia consumes this much GOON. And I was thinking, it's not Australians, it's backpackers.
Yeah.
That's so true.
They love the GOON. And it's like a myth, isn't it? It's sort of, or legend that gets passed on. And it's almost a thing that you have to do if you do backpack. As horrible as it is, you just have to have at least not one box of GOON, because that would put me away, but some GOON.
But the most important question about it is, does it get you drunk quickly?
Yeah. And do you know what? It's a different type of drunk. It's not a standard drunk where what you're used to. It's like a weird drunk.
Like
and
a fish drunk.
Yeah, is it a bit like getting an allergic reaction because you've got a nut allergy?
It's really hard to describe, and then the hangovers are slightly weird. There's just something not quite right about it that I can't put my finger on.
What colour is it if it's meant to be wine? Is it red or white?
You get both. I think backpackers.
It's everything.
So I sound like a GOON connoisseur. You get dry white that's kind of a bit of a sharper taste.
Yeah.
I don't like that. I go for the fruity Lexia, which is a bit more of a fruity taste, hence the name. What people tend to do, it's so minging that they think, I just can't do any more GOON anymore. Brings up bad memories, so they'll mix GOON with 7-Up or whatever.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
I thought you were going to say they take drugs instead.
Well, people do that. It's probably a safer alternative.
Cool. Let's move this on. Let's go further north. So from Sydney to Brisbane, I'll just tell you briefly our time there. We didn't really like Brisbane, only because we weren't there very long. It just seemed like a big city, and it fucking chucked it down the whole time we were there. It was so much rain.
I remember being a bit of a diva that day, but girls and guys out there, you would completely agree with me if you saw how much it was raining. Fuck off, Nick. He's
No, it was horrible, but
he's disagreeing with me. He's shaking his head.
But our only option was to go out and explore or sit in the hostel all day.
Yeah, no, to be fair, I agree with you. We should have gone out. But when I mean it was like pouring, it was like storm rain. Like you stand outside for 5 seconds, it's like you've been in a shower. It was ridiculous. And Nick made me walk all around Brisbane, not even to specific areas. We're just walking around, just looking at boring buildings and where people are working and stuff. And then we went to, were there some gardens or something?
Yeah.
Great. Gardens.
Yeah, it was great. There was grey clouds, rain everywhere, and then we ended up just sitting at this cafe, and it was the most depressing day ever.
Yeah, it wasn't great, and it's a bit of a journey, but that's quite close to Surfers Paradise. Is that right? Is that near Brisbane?
Yeah, it is a couple hours on a bus, maybe.
Okay, so yeah, but we didn't go there. We didn't have much time in Brisbane.
It's been compared to, it's like the Benidorm of Australia.
Oh, so it's cheap, tatty, not very nice.
Yeah, my friend went on I didn't go on it in the end myself, but he went on his stag do to
Surfers Paradise.
Yeah.
Okay. Apparently Brisbane is the city in Australia that gets the most sunshine. Apparently.
Yeah, I suppose because is it close to the equator?
Cairns is closer. You'd think that would get more sunshine, or Darwin, but apparently I've heard that Brisbane, or maybe Queensland, the state, I don't know, like the Sunshine State, a bit like Florida in America. Anyway, we didn't think much of Brisbane, so what we could decide at that point, we decided to get a camper van. We could either head south to Sydney, where the weather was probably going to be worse, or we could chase the sun and head north to Cairns, and that's what we did. I think we made the right choice. But before we leave Brisbane on this little imaginary tour, do you think much of Brisbane?
I think the airport does a job.
Right.
They've got good facilities. And
What's the transport like from the airport into the city?
What times are they?
I'm gonna be honest. I didn't go to Brisbane. Well, I was on a bus from Noosa to Byron Bay, so we switched buses in Brisbane, and I drove in and drove out, and that's it. So
Yeah, but that's your favourite bit, isn't it? The transport.
it's just keep coming full circle.
Okay, well that's good, 'cause we need to move on anyway. So yeah, some of the stops we hit on the way was we did get to Noosa for a little bit. Airlie Beach, which
Sorry, where was the place where
I'm getting to Rockhampton. Don't get me started on fucking Rockhampton.
I can't wait to talk about Rockhampton.
Airlie Beach was good. Like we'd finally hit the backpacker scene, and Whitsundays, amazing. We had nice weather. That's when the
amazing.
holiday really started, and for things like that, that's what Australia's good for. I really liked Airlie Beach and the Whitsundays, but yeah, Rockhampton is this town. Like when you look on a map, it's kind of the logical stop of somewhere to stay for the night because it's so far in the middle of nowhere, but it's between Brisbane and Airlie Beach, I think. We were going to stay in Rockhampton for a few days, and we're like, right, let's just stop driving because we're getting a bit sick of it. Let's ask where we were camping. Let's ask the lady that works there, what can you do in Rockhampton? Can we go surfing? We've heard it's good for steaks. Can we go to a rodeo? This is going to be fun. And we said, what can you do? She was like, you can't do anything in Rockhampton. You can't go surfing. Rodeo's once a week and it's next week. Like, oh, we've missed that. And she kind of laughed. She was like, you've nothing else to do. Sorry,
she
guys.
kind of laughed at us and she went, why are you here? Like, what are you doing here? And we was like, we don't know. This trip's just going really bad. We don't know what we're doing. So we drove up and we got there first before Airlie Beach. So we just come from Brisbane where it's raining. We didn't like Perth. So this whole part of the trip was just really shit. And we were in the camper van almost ranting to each other like, firstly, why have we come here? And secondly, why does everyone think this is such a great country? And then I'll be honest, as soon as we hit Airlie Beach, where the Whitsundays are, everything changed. And it was a lot better. It wasn't amazing, but it was a lot better.
Yeah, I'd rather be in Southeast Asia, but it was good. So you were smiling or laughing when we were talking about Rockhampton. Have you got a great Rockhampton story?
No, me and you've had that conversation before, so I knew about the story about the radio.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing I remember as well is we parked up our van where this woman was like, why are you here? And then we parked the van and then there were signs everywhere going, watch out for the crocodiles. And we were right by this bloody lake. And we were thinking that, like, at night time, if we get out of our camper van to go to the toilet or something, there could actually be a crocodile waiting to, like, eat us.
Could be.
Luckily, we
Dangerous.
didn't see one, though, did we?
But Airlie Beach, Whitsundays, what do you think, Richard?
Airlie Beach isn't the beach to start off with, is it? It's they've got a lagoon, but there's no real sand there.
That's true, actually. Yeah, there isn't.
Because there's a lot of jellyfish in the water, I think it's unsafe to swim in the sea.
My least favourite animal in the world. Like, I'd rather see a shark than a jellyfish.
The Whitsundays, obviously it's really nice to look at. The sand's pretty cool. It's silica, which got a lot of good properties. Like it comes in everything you buy over in the UK. You buy a pair of shoes.
It's the same as in the Blue Lagoon. That's got silica in it.
Oh, in Iceland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Don't get started in Iceland.
But it's obviously cool. I think the problem with me when I went there is that I'd heard everybody tell me the same story about how it's good, and I'd seen the same photos of them at the top of the hill looking at their Whitsundays in the background. I'd seen it and heard it so many times that when I went, it just didn't seem like my special trip. It just felt like the same thing everyone else is doing. But there's no denying it's a beautiful place. The trip itself is fun. You usually take a 2-day, 2-night cruise. You can take some of that wonderful GOON with you.
Yes.
And you drink on a boat if you want at night, snorkeling during the day. So it's a cool trip. Yeah, I'll give it that.
It is amazing. Like when we went there in 2013, it said that a few articles were saying that particular Whitsundays beach that we went to was 7th best beach in the world. So that's really good. But like since then, we've been to the Maldives, and there's just no comparison.
Yeah. But no, Whitehaven Beach, that's what it's called, isn't it,
Yeah.
on the Whitsundays, is amazing. It looks like the pictures. The sand is white. It's not even yellow, it's white. And if you, because it's good for your skin, it's quite valuable. And if you take a load in your pocket and try and take it home, you get charged like $2,000, don't you?
Yeah, it's illegal. You're not allowed to take it.
Yeah.
But, I mean, most people who visit aren't dickheads, and, most people who've got over to that point are just going to be respect the place what it is, so...
Yeah, definitely.
And so, moving further north, we went to Cairns. And I remember liking Cairns, actually. Maybe because the weather was nice, but I thought that the town or city, whatever you want to call it, was quite nice. But that's where we done the Great Barrier Reef. We done some proper scuba diving. First time I ever done that with the oxygen tanks. And I don't like swimming in the sea. It freaks me out. But once I was underneath and everything was calm, I loved it. I really enjoyed scuba diving. Barrier Reef was cool. Doesn't look like how it looks on the TV. Like they enhance the colours on the pictures and stuff.
Well, hang on, is that correct? Because what they often do, and I think I fell for this trap, is that the barrier reef's dying off, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they've got this strategy where they take tourists, these proper crap parts that have died off, and people just pay for it. You tick a box, go, I've gone to Barrier Reef, where there's actually some really nice parts of it. It's just you have to dig a bit deeper to actually go on a trip that goes there, because, you know, it's serious divers who aren't going to touch the ocean bed and stuff like that.
That's amazing. Well, not amazing, but I really didn't know that.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, because I did the scuba diving thing as well, and I went away for 2.5 years on that trip, and that was part of my plan, was to get my diving license in Koh Tao in Thailand, because it's the cheapest place in the world to do it, and I was going to take it with me and then do the Barrier Reef and use it there. So that's exactly what I did. And it was a bit underwhelmed because, like you said, it's just not what it's like on TV. But later I found out, actually, I think it's because of that they've taken me to a poor part. There's also, on the west coast, a place called the Ningaloo Reef, which apparently is a lot nicer, but it's just not as famous.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, because it's not, like, the largest one in the world.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised if our company was like that, because, so me and Nick were complete beginners. We'd done snorkeling before, but we'd never scuba dived, and it was all a bit sketchy for my liking, really, because I signed us up because it was on my bucket list. Nick didn't know, but I'd signed us up. I was like, we're doing it, mate. And I was really surprised you were quite nervous about it, because you're not normally nervous about stuff like that. But signed us up, and we go out on this boat, and it's all fine. Like, it's a big boat. There's probably about 60 people on it. And then they go out right into the middle of the sea, obviously, where the Barrier Reef is. And we were just sort of dropped off the edge of the boat, off the back. And the waves out there are really big. They're probably going up between 0.5 metre and 1 metre. So you're really going up and down, right? And you're on the back of this boat, and they say, right, go under, hold your breath, take the air mask out of your mouth, and then put it back in, and then you have to blow into it, right, to get the water out. I'm not nervous in water at all, but because we was going up and down, and it was just all really chaotic, and they were kind of shouting at us, like, go under, do this. If you don't do it, you can't go up fully under with your guide. And so you do it in groups of 4, and so we were along with another couple, and then them two did it, and Nick did it. Because I didn't do it in time, they grabbed my my life jacket and just pulled me out of the water, and they were like, "You're taking too long. They've got to go down." And I was like,
and I was underwater at the time, and the guy just pointed to me and said, "Follow me." I'm like, "Well, I'm going to listen to what he says." So I thought, okay, maybe Amy decided not to do it. And then when I came back, you were like, "You left me."
I was actually really upset, and I was kind of crying because and that sounds really stupid, but it felt like such a chaotic experience at the time, and I was still quite young as well. This was a few years ago. I was really nervous, and they were shouting at me, and I just didn't really know why, and it was all really rushed. And so what happened was I then got comfortable with it. I went in by myself and like got myself comfortable, and then later on went under. But then it was almost like I want to do the experience with Nick because that's what we're here for. So, and then they were like, no, he can't do it again. He's already had his one go. And they were so tight about it. So we had to pay for a second round for Nick to go under so that we could have that experience together. It was just all very rushed. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were one of those places that take you to the not so good part of the Barrier Reef.
And that's the problem, because it's a place that's never going to lose tourists. People are always going to go to the Barrier Reef. They've got your money. They can pretty much do what they want, really, as a shame as it is.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, because it's so famous. It's famous because it's the biggest, not necessarily because it's the best, but just because it's the biggest. Let's move on. That was actually the end of mine and Amy's Australia trip, because we then flew to New Zealand, which kicked ass. But let's go inland. Uluru. Yeah, we haven't been, but what do you think of that and the surrounding area? Because what's the town called nearby?
Alice Springs.
That's it. Tell us about that.
I didn't plan to go to Uluru, but I won a trip. And I went on.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really cool. And we've had this conversation when we've met in the past about tour groups, because I'm not too much of a fan. You guys are big advocates of them. But I actually went on a tour group for that, and it was really good, actually, because I've been in Australia for a year at this point. I hadn't gone out with Victoria. I didn't know anything about Aborigines, which is, shocking. It's embarrassing on my part, but there you go.
Oh, no, you're not Australian, are you? So
Yeah.
You're not supposed to know.
Too much goon drinking, I think. But yeah, it was a really good trip. The environment is something that, I've never experienced before. It's different desert to other deserts in the world. And yeah, it was just breathtaking, some of it. The rock itself, people go, oh, it's just a rock. I suppose it is, but it's still great to look at. And actually, I recommend going on tour for that, because there's a rock nearby that's called Uluru that people drive up and go, oh, there it is, it's amazing. But it's not, it's a different one.
I like it.
Never heard that before.
Yeah. So, and on this, like I say, on this tour, you get to hear about the Aborigine culture and stuff like that, which, is interesting. I didn't know anything about. And then After that, we went to, it's called Kings Canyon, which was even better in my book because I didn't have any expectations, and it just felt like it just looked like a different planet almost. It looked a bit like Mars.
Yeah.
It was incredible. So that trip actually inspired me to do New Zealand instead of the East Coast because it was more of a more viable trip, and I thought I'd get more out of it.
Amazing.
What I will say is that I know that the flights have since increased because my flight was $150 there, $150 to Sydney. I know they're a lot more expensive now, so you could end up paying close to $1,000 for the flight.
Wow. So you have to fly to the centre. There's no way of you like getting a bus out there, or
Don't think a bus, no.
Well, I thought you were an expert with transport.
True, but
Come on, Rich.
I specialise in public transport, though, not cross-country transport. I think you can drive there. To be honest, I don't want to just put out crap information.
Yeah.
So it's probably a safer way.
It's best to fly there. That's like the most common way of getting there.
But I think the flights have been put up. So if you are paying close to $1,000 for that, then the $360 for the tour, then your night either side in Alice Springs and your
Yeah, I was
food.
going to say Alice Springs. That's an expensive place just to get a can of Coke, isn't it? Like $8 or something.
I can't remember, to be honest.
Well, I've heard, yeah, because you're in the outback. The places that are so in the middle of nowhere, they're bound to be expensive.
Yeah, I think Alice Springs is a bit different because they have supermarkets and that, so the prices are a bit lower. But yeah, you know, the whole trip could end up costing you $1,500. I personally think the Uluru trip's more valuable and better trip than the 2 weeks on the East Coast, but it is what it is.
I really wish that we'd done it, actually. But going back to Uluru, so the actual rock itself and Aboriginals, which we will talk about a little bit after because we've got a game coming up in a minute. Isn't it right that the Aboriginals look at Uluru and the rock and think that it's possessed by gods? Is that right?
This trip was 4 years ago. 3 years ago. But I know it's got some spiritual significance. I know that
so
much.
they really...
like, tourists aren't allowed to go and stand on the rock, are
No,
they?
you are.
Oh,
This
okay.
is the thing, but it's a bit of a douchebag move, really, because there is some steps I think you can walk up, and I love doing stuff like that. And I
So
think
you love steps as well, yeah. Cool.
Well, you're an interesting guy.
I know, yeah. You're welcome, listeners. I know I love going up on high places and looking out. I don't think we could have done it at the time, but even if we could, I wouldn't have done it just as an act of respect, really. And I think most people feel the same thing. If you're doing a tour and you hear about their culture and what they stand for, and you think, yeah, it's a bit of a shitty move to start going on their rock that they don't want you walking on.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think they're trying to get a law to ban people going up. Last time I heard, it might have been in place, it might not. You have to check that out yourselves. But as I went, you could do it. But if it's still the case and you go in, just please don't do that. It's just disrespectful to those people.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. So we will come back because I want to talk about Aboriginals a bit more as well. But let's get into a game.
So this game we've got coming up is called Reverse Trivia. Now, we need to explain the inspiration behind this game. Me and Amy remember hearing this hilarious clip from a radio station about a year ago, I think we heard it, and we remembered it being Australian. We went back and we listened. It's actually from a New Zealand radio station, but it's still fucking hilarious, and it demonstrates the game perfectly.
Fair reverse trivia answer tonight, Sunday. What do you reckon the question might be?
Father's Day.
What about Father's?
Father's Day is on Sunday.
Yeah, but what's the question?
Oh, no, I don't know.
Oh, you're close. I just need the question.
Oh,
Like
I'm not too sure.
the answer's Sunday, but what would the question be?
All I know is Father's Day.
Yeah, you're kind of right. I just need to know the question.
The 31st?
Yeah. I just need it in a question form though, like as a question, like maybe like what day is Father's?
What day is Father's Day? Sunday.
Yeah. So what would the question be?
Father's Day is on Sunday.
Yeah, but if it was to be a question, it would be what day is Father's Day? So
What day is Father's Day, right?
Yeah. So the answer's Sunday.
Sunday.
What do you reckon the question might be?
What's the question, right? Oh, don't know.
You're 90% there. You need to give me the question. The answer.
Happy Father's Day.
No.
Oh.
If the answer's Sunday, the question needs to be what day is Father's Day.
What day is Father's Day?
So if I ask you that, you give me that as the question, eh?
What day is Father's Day? Sunday.
Yep. So the answer's Sunday. What would the question be?
Father's Day.
Yeah.
See, I don't know.
No. But the question needs to be what day. The answer needs to be what day is Father's Day.
What day is Father's Day?
So I'll say the answer's Sunday, and if you can say what day is Father's Day, that's what I need. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. The answer's Sunday. What do you reckon the question might be?
Sunday.
What you need to say to me, what day is Father's Day?
Oh,
Okay? The answer's Sunday. What's the question?
what day is Father's Day?
You got it. You've got it.
How can someone be that stupid? It's so funny.
Oh, I don't know. Father's Day or Sunday.
Right, well, the bar's been set low, so hopefully I can top that.
So, Amy, take it away. You've got this game prepared for me and Richard to play against each other.
Yeah, so we're going to do an Aussie version of that clip. So basically, reverse trivia. I'm going to give you the answer. You guys have to give me the question. And everything is based on Australia, okay? Now, you have your own buzzers, especially. So do you want to just press that number 16 button there for me, Richard?
Oh, he can get hit in the fucking balls.
So that's your clip. And Nick, can you click number 5?
Barbara, you're a good looking shape, mate.
Great.
So these are your buzzers for the game. So whoever buzzes first gets to answer, okay? So I'm not strictly looking for the correct answer, okay? Because if you have a more inventive, funnier question to my answer, then I'm more likely to give you the point, okay?
Okay, so like if I buzz, say something, if you say, nah, like it's not good or not funny or not correct, then Richard gets a chance. Is that right?
Yeah. Okay, guys, so you've got 10 questions, or 10 answers, sorry. Your first answer is 26th of January.
Oh, he can get hit in the fucking balls.
So that's Rich.
What date is Australia Day?
Yes, that is
Ah,
correct.
damn.
It's not very funny or inventive, but
Well, some of them are quite, they're standard, just to make sure that someone got a point.
This
so,
is,
yeah,
this
that's
is going to
correct.
ease us in.
Yeah, okay, so you got that one correct. The second answer is kangaroo.
Barbara, you're a
He
good
can
looking
get
shape,
hit in
mate.
the fucking balls.
Oh, I think that one was Rich again. So, yeah, what's your question?
which animal in Australia can punch you in the face the hardest?
That's not actually my question.
Can I have a go?
I'll be shocked if anyone gets this question, by the way.
Can I have a go?
Barbara, you're a good looking shape, mate.
So I know an interesting fact about kangaroos. Right, I'm going to go for what is the only animal in the world that can pause its pregnancy?
Yes.
Yes! Boom, 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 boom.
I promise he has not seen these questions. You can probably work out the way my brain works there. Right, answer number 3. Matador barbecues 1-day cup.
Barbara, you're a good looking shape, mate.
That's Nick.
Actually, I thought I had a funny answer, but I don't now. I was going to say Richard's idea of taking a girl on a first date, but it doesn't even make sense. Matadors and something about a bond. What was that? Bonds?
Matador barbecues 1-day cup.
Barbecues.
I'm surprised. I thought Richard might know this.
My only idea I've got, it's not something to do with those horse and cart races, is it?
No.
No.
The question is, what is one of Australia's national cricket competitions called?
Oh, no idea.
I thought you would have known that.
Could have gone with the Ashes.
Terrible name for a sport competition.
It is terrible.
Okay, answer number 4. The crocodile hunter.
Barbara, you're a good
He
looking
can
shape,
get
mate.
hit in the fucking balls.
So,
Was that Nick? That
Yeah,
one?
it's Nick.
who is
Yeah.
Steve Irwin? Or what his nickname?
What is Steve Owen's nickname?
Yeah. Is that all right? Can I have that?
Well, you kind of answered it with the first one. That's fine. You don't need to get the wording exactly right.
Thank you.
Okay, answer number 5. Get your buzzers at the ready. Barley.
Oh, he can get hit in the fucking balls.
That's Rich.
What is the most popular foreign holiday destination for Australians?
That is correct.
Yes, mate. Well done.
Yeah, so where is an Australian most likely to go on holiday? It's Bali. Right, so answer number 6. Canberra.
Barbara, you're a good looking
Get hit
shape,
in the
mate.
fucking balls.
Rich is quick with his buzzer. What do you think it is?
What is the capital of Australia?
That is correct.
Well done.
So we have Rich in the lead with 3 points to Nick's 2. Answer number 7.
Barbara, you're a good
He
looking
can get
shape,
hit
mate.
in the fucking balls.
I actually don't know who won that buzzer. Who was it?
Richard is a. I don't know who it was.
Okay,
I
well,
don't know
because
either.
I don't know who buzzed first, what were you going to say, Richard? And then I'm going to see who wins this point.
What is the most popular word that Australians used?
Oh, so Richard, you've technically got it right,
Boo.
but I kind of like Nick's answer.
Hey!
I'm going to give you both a point for that one.
All right. Both got a point. And as we learned earlier, that means I like you.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, so answer number 8. Tasmanian devil.
Oh, he can get hit in the fucking balls.
That was Rich. Okay, what's your answer? What's your question, sorry?
Which native Australian creature did Warner Bros. Make a cartoon of?
No, that is incorrect. The question was, what makes this noise?
That's a hard one. How would we have got that?
Well, exactly. I needed to make it difficult.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay, answer number 9. So you've just got 2 left. Barbie.
Barbara, you're in good looking shape, mate.
So that's Nick.
What do Australians call a barbecue? Nickname for a barbecue.
Yes, that is correct.
Here we go.
Is it neck and neck?
It is, yeah. 4 each.
So it's 4 each, neck and neck. The last point is a decider.
Oh my god.
Get
so
your
nervous.
buzzers at the ready. Number 10. The answer is Australia.
Barbara, you're in good looking shape, mate.
That's Nick's buzzer.
Which country do I think is shit?
Have you actually seen these questions?
No.
Are you joking?
I wouldn't cheat because that's no fun, is it? Is that what you said?
What country does Nick hate?
Oh, well, I've probably got an advantage because I know how your brain works. So that's it. I've done it, yeah?
So Nick, you won 5 points to Rich's
Good
4.
game.
Why
game.
don't we just see, Richard, do you want to attempt to come up with an answer? You can say something positive about Australia. And Amy might
Which
like
has good
it.
transport.
Which country has the world's greatest transport system?
Oh, yes. Well, Amy, what do you think? You're the judge.
I'm going to give Rich the point.
Hey, whatever. Fine by me.
Rich won the game.
I
It's all
think you're
good.
being generous, but I'll take what I can get.
That was
But
good.
you aced the Capitals game, so it doesn't even matter.
Yeah, true.
Champion. That was good fun, that was.
Love it. Right, okay, let's carry on talking about Australia. I want to start with Tasmania, though, because you've been there. It's not a place that many people have been. We haven't been there. What's your general feeling about it?
I think it's amazing. And you're right. I think there has been an increase in tourists or backpackers going there these days. But people kind of think, well, I'll just go to New Zealand. It's the same thing. And don't get me wrong, it has some of the same features like nice scenery and mountains and forests and rivers and beautiful lakes and stuff like that. But no, I think it's amazing. And it's so cheap to do as well. I think people are put off the fact that you have to fly there because it's an island. But when I went, we picked up a return flight for $90 and you can hire a camper van for, I think it's $35 a night. You don't have to pay for campsites. Sorry, you do have to pay for campsites in Tasmania. But unlike the rest of Australia, in Tasmania, you are allowed to pull up anywhere on the side of the road and camp up for the night, as long as it's not marked otherwise.
Fantastic.
So would you, overall, would you recommend someone to go to Tasmania more than somewhere else in Australia?
Yeah, 100%. When people ask me about Australia, like, oh, what should I do? And I always say Tasmania. And they go, nah, I think I'll just go down the East Coast like everyone else. But
Yeah.
for me, it's cheaper. It's just a different part of Australia. It's different scenery. Beautiful, really beautiful. And like I say, it's pretty cheap to do. So
What kind of terrain is it? Is it a lot of like mountains or?
yeah, it is kind of, you could compare it to New Zealand, I guess, in terms of its features. But
So could it be a mix of Australia and New Zealand?
yeah, there is some cool beaches. Again, we couldn't really appreciate them
'Cause
because
it was
it's raining. But there was some beaches in nice weather would be cool.
Absolutely. So one of the biggest things that people know from Australia, and quite rightly so, is the Aboriginals, because they were what started Australia. They are the people of Australia. What was your... Well, actually, I'll start by saying our experience with Aboriginals. So we were told by a few people before going that you shouldn't look Aboriginals in the eye when they walk past you. They're almost like homeless people, and they're a bit crazy, and they're always drunk. Beware, basically. And now that I've been, I'm really, really annoyed that people said that to us, because they're human beings. Do you know what I mean? And I'm also annoyed at us for listening, because we were young at the time. It's 2013, and I mean young as in travellers. We hadn't been that many places and didn't really understand stuff, where now I'd be like, okay, that's your opinion. I'm sure like you've just had that sort of experience, but I'm not going to take it as that. And so when we first arrived in Australia, we were in Perth, and we got on the bus from the airport to go to stay at our friend's flat, because he very kindly hosted us. And we were on the bus, and there was these Aboriginal women, and we were almost kind of like, keep looking forward, don't look at them, don't look at them. And they were just so interested in knowing where we were from. And the woman kept coming up to us, and she was like, where are you guys from? And like really chatting with us and stuff. And like we did talk back, but we must have seemed really reserved. And I'm really upset that that was the case, because we could have got off the bus with her and spent the day with her and learnt a lot about our Aboriginal people and stuff like that. So I now regret doing that. But what's been your experience with Aboriginal people?
For the first year, I think I mentioned it earlier, I didn't really know what an Aboriginal person was. And then when I went on this trip, I kind of saw pictures of them. We saw a few of them There's a few dotted around Alice Springs. For me, it just seems like they've been left behind. They've been blown out of the water by Western civilization, because they were on Australia for tens of thousands of years, doing their Aboriginal way of life, living off the land and picking berries off stuff and making their own clothes and sort of speaking their language. And I think they still do. Like, they'll try and marry families together, so they sort of, you get two tribes coming together as one and make a stronger tribe. And then all of a sudden, I mean, Australia's grown from nothing to what it is now in 200-something years or whatever.
Yeah, like the blink of an eye, yeah.
And it's just growing so quickly. But they've been doing what they've been doing for 10,000 years, so they've been left behind.
Yeah, and I think the truth is really just Western life just doesn't suit them.
Yeah.
It just, for whatever reason, doesn't suit their culture. And then once we introduce things like alcohol and drugs, it doesn't suit them. And like they do have there's a lot of people that are addicted. There's problems with communities. But again, if you've been left behind and forgotten, you don't really feel like you've got much purpose. And of course, you're going to turn to alcohol or drugs.
But other things, what they do try and give Aboriginals a lot of benefits to try and sort of make up for it. But they'll give them a house with these doors and windows, and Aboriginals are like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, why do you need these doors and windows in this? So my friend was living in WA, working on an ice cream van, and he said the houses just kicked out the windows because they don't want windows. Like, that's our thing, that's not their thing. And
what did they have? What, they just didn't have windows, or they not the
glass
glass bit?
Yeah, just kicked them out.
Oh, so it's just that there's flowing air going throughout the house.
Yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
It's just that's what they've not been living in that for that amount of time. They've been living in their own little shelters. So I don't know if I mentioned it earlier in the episode, but I worked as a teacher in the western suburbs. I think there was about 4 kids who I taught. They were Aboriginals, and they had all these benefits. Some that were kind of, you're not supposed to say it because it's just not a done thing. You're either Aboriginal or you're not. You're not half Aboriginal. You're not a quarter. Despite if a white person's sort of bred with is that the right term, bred?
Yeah, what is the right word?
Or mated.
It's laid with a white person.
Yeah.
Whatever the term is, so it's white and Aboriginal. It's not, you're not half white, half Aboriginal. You're either Aboriginal or you're not. You know, they get all these benefits, education, but they just...
But yes, it's education. They don't really want. Like, why should they speak English?
Precisely.
Yeah.
And
something I just on English and language, something that actually Amy showed me, I find this fascinating because their culture's so different. They actually don't have a word. It's for either please or thank you, or maybe both. But it's because you don't have to ever ask anyone for anything. Everyone just helps each other without saying. So, of course, you're going to support a community. So you don't have to say thank you or please can I have this? Because to them, like, money never existed before the white men came along. So they never needed possessions or things. They never had to ask for things. And they never had to thank people for things because people just did it. It was normal.
Can I just add something just before we move on? Mm-hmm. So obviously you said you were ashamed of the way you kind of looked at Aboriginals.
Yeah.
What I would say is don't be closed-minded, but you know, they do get drunk, they do get into trouble,
and they can be very abusive.
Yeah, so
everyone can.
So I don't want everybody to listen to this podcast and go, "Oh, cool, let's go and hang out at the Abos or whatever," and they go in and get beaten up. Like, interact with them if they're there. Interact with them. But just make sure you're in a safe place because they're not going to be grateful you're going to come over and be all matey with them. Just, you know, be in a safe position, I'd say.
Absolutely, that's a really good point, actually. Yeah, I don't want anyone getting themselves into a dangerous situation because, they have a lot of social issues and they've been brought up in this way. So, you know, same with a white person. If they'd been brought up in that sort of environment, they would act in a similar way, you know? Just very briefly, what's the deal with farm work? Because when you see on Facebook all your friends sort of going off and living in Australia, is it something that you have to do? Isn't it something that you have to do it to get your visa, or what's the deal with that?
So a lot of countries, probably most countries, are entitled to a 1-year working holiday visa. You can get a second year. I know America isn't in this category, but most countries can get a second year. But in order to do that, you must complete 88 days of regional work, which is usually working on a farm in the middle of nowhere. In theory, it's a great idea because, you know, you get an extra year in this country. You just got to give 3 months of your life and you get to save a bit of money. And I strongly recommend that you're really careful about it because there's been a lot of press over the last year of people getting really shitty deals. And they're working for hardly any money, like £5 a day, $10 a day, sort of ridiculous conditions. They're getting bad backs, and you don't want to be in that position yourself, and you can avoid being in that position yourself if you've got any inkling before you go that you want to do a second year, you want to do 2 years, or if you have a good couple of months and think, yeah, I do want to do 2 years, then I can't stress enough, get it done early, because if you leave it till your 8th, your 9th month, and you're leaving just enough time to find a job and do it, you know, beggars can't be choosers, and you might be forced to take some real crappy job, and backpackers will take it in the arse to get a second year. Sorry, Jill. But
I don't think she listens anymore.
That's Nick's mum, by the way, for anyone that doesn't know.
But yeah, there's a lot of jobs out there that you get paid for what you pick. So picking fruit's a common one, but you'll get paid $10 a box. But the box is the size of an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And if you bruise some, then they take that out. And it's really hot conditions. And
so farmers are kind of like now starting to take advantage of backpackers.
Not now. It's been going on for a long time.
Yeah.
And it probably always will do, because there's so many people want to stay for a second year. But, you know...
Yeah, so if you say, no, I'm not taking that job, farmer will say, all right, I've got 12 other people that will do it.
Exactly. So what I'm saying is, get yourself a job sorted early if you think you might want to do a second year. And a good job looks something like $20 an hour, give or take a little bit, working 40 plus hours a week, so you're earning decent money. Maybe in a small town, there's a lot of working hostels where they have contacts with the farmers, so they organise work people. You know, in a small town with maybe a supermarket and a gym and a pub and in a hostel, so you got social interaction. That's what I'd say a good farm work job looks. Yeah,
perfect. That's really good advice. So let's wrap up, and we've all got to give our rating out of 10 of Australia. So it can be of just your general opinion of it. It doesn't matter if you were there just for a holiday or you live there and work there, just your general out of 10 mark for Australia. So you need to account for food, living costs, is it expensive, accommodation, the people, all these things. So I think we should probably start with Nick, because yours is probably going to be pretty easy.
I'd probably give it, again, only from my experience, I'd probably give it like a 3 out of 10, because...
Oh, mate.
It's bad, isn't it? Mate, yeah, now we're mates. We're not
anyway.
We're mates. Only because it's expensive. Like that's a big thing that puts me off a country. It's huge. It's massive. If you want to get from one city to another, it can be a whole day or 2 days drive or whatever. But yeah, there are some beautiful places. People listening are going to be like, well, you're from the UK. The UK is fucking shit. And like, yeah, there are bad parts of it, but I think there's cool parts of it. We live right in London. It's a massive big city. But what I do want to make clear, I think the people are really cool. I like Australians. This isn't a personal dig. I just didn't really enjoy my time in your country. Plus, your neighbours with New Zealand, and New Zealand's fucking awesome.
I completely agree. Like, the main thing for me is that Aussies are amazing. They're always up for a laugh, good to go out drinking with and stuff. But in terms of the country, like, we tried going out on a few nights out, drinking we went to Perth and a few nights, and we couldn't find a good place to go out. As soon as we got to New Zealand, like, we had great nights out, you know? But yeah, people were a massive thing for me. I loved the day that we went to the Great Barrier Reef, despite the situation that we had that I spoke about earlier, and loved Airlie Beach and the Whitsundays. They were all highlights for me, but they were only like a select few days out of our whole trip. The rest of it really wasn't great. And, you know, driving along the Great Australian Road, it isn't all that. You're sitting in a car for days and it's like Nick said in our clip, it's a dust bowl. But I would give it out of 10. I actually would be open to going back and just testing it again. But I would give it out of 10. I want to say 4. I'm going to give it a 4 or a 5 out of 10 because it's kind of like level with Romania. But yeah, what do you think? You are the most equipped for this question.
I give it a 9.
Whoa, I did not expect that.
Yeah, I mean, I had 3 great years there. I am open to going back and living there. I might settle there one day. But I just think it's just a great place to live. The lifestyle I had there, everything's a bit more laid back and it's not so work focused. And whereas over here, you know, I love England and the UK, but there's a lot of emphasis on you work until the work's done. And it doesn't matter if it's 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, whatever. Whereas over there, you tend to get more money for an easier amount of work. And I'm not a lazy person, but I just feel that's important. And I also think there's a lot of amazing stuff to see in Australia as well in terms of visiting. I just think that the stuff that people are pushed onto, like the East Coast, you're not going to see any Australians. You're not going to understand anything about Australia. You're just going to see a load of nice beaches. There's some amazing places to see. that you do learn about the country, you do learn about the people, you do see real Australia, but they're just a bit harder to find because they're not nice and packaged like the East Coast is. There's just a bit, you have to dig a bit deeper. And, you know, we've talked about the stuff I like. So, yeah.
That's interesting, and that's why we got you on the show, because you're the man in the know. We've never lived and worked there. That was just our experience. But no, I bet the whole show you've given some really good advice for people who want to travel Australia.
Absolutely. So we said at the start that you are yourself a travel podcaster. So can you tell us about your podcast and where people can find it?
Yeah, I'm not the best at self-promoting, to be honest, but I'm basically trying to push the same message that you guys push, in that, you know, there's a load of great places to visit and see, and so I want to promote that idea and just try and get guests on that give good advice and about places and travelling in general, and just try and have a bit of a laugh with it. It's called #RJK World Tour Podcast. It's on iTunes. It's the website as well, rjkworldtour.com. A good episode to start would be episode 49, if you are interested at all. And that's because that was the episode that Nick and Amy were on.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah, that was a good one.
And, you know, if you're a fan of Nick and Amy, which you are, because you listen to the show, you know, they make the episodes a lot about the country and about the guests, rather than focusing on themselves. So if you want to get to know them a little bit better, then just check out that episode if you are interested at all. And yeah, social media, I'm mainly on Facebook, and that's it really.
Cool, but yeah, I mean, I listen to your show. It's packed full of good advice. Yeah, some of your guests you get on. I mean, one episode, which I think you said was quite popular, was advice on, as a backpacker, how to get a job. The guy you had on the episode, he travelled a lot, but he also employed backpackers, so he could give a lot of good advice. And one of my favourite ones was your episode, When I Lost My Bullshit, or you said ball poo. You sometimes do this where actually you're on your own and you're just chatting on your own. I can do that.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I've heard those episodes.
But you tell us about how travel's changed your life, and when you first went travelling, you realised what is life back home. It's all a lot of bullshit. And like people, I think you said something about how when you're travelling, people go on big crazy nights out, and the girls don't worry about their hair or their makeup, and everyone just has a good time. Whereas back home, you even get blokes who, like, before a night out, they'll make sure they have a gym session. They wear their nicest T-shirt, maybe fake tan, and you're like, it's all a load of bollocks. But that was one of my favourite episodes, when you were just chatting on your own.
Well, I appreciate the nice words, and especially coming from you two with your excellent podcast. It means a lot, and it's how we got connected, so, you know.
Yeah, it's good. Right, well, thank you so much for talking to us today. It's been lots of fun. We've learnt a lot about transport.
We have.
You're welcome, everyone.
But yeah, thank you for joining us. So thanks for listening. See you later.
Blimey, crikey. See you later.
See you later,
Please feel free to get in touch with the show. You can do that by checking out our website, www.whatthefotravelpodcast.com. From that, you can find all of our social media channels. We're on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Our email address is whatthefopodcast@gmail.com.